Hi, my name's Tom. Welcome to episode 2 of The Row, a series that combines the documentation of a fundraising challenge I'm undertaking and conversations with people of note regarding mental health. I'm raising money for the mental health service Shout, the UK's first and only free confidential 24/7 text messaging service for anyone who's struggling to cope. For more details about the challenge and how you can help Shout and how to donate to the challenge, please click on the link to the Just Giving page in the description below. In this episode, I'm at Cambridge United training grounds to have a conversation with Callum Langley, the club's academy player care manager. As a Cambridge United fan, the club have formed an important part of my own personal identity ever since I can remember. My first game way back at the Abbey in 1994. Since then, I've lost count of how many games I've been to and watched over the years, and my fandom even survived 10 years of non-league football to now where the club sit in the third tier of English football. In recent years, I've been really impressed with the club's off-the-field endeavours under the current ownership. In particular, the club's focus on mental health and well-being and advocates of mental well-being as a whole. It's actually through the club that I'd heard of Shout, as they are the official mental health partner of Cambridge United and help form part of the club's mental health policies and strategy. I joined Callum to talk through those and how the club are putting mental health as a central part of its operations. Hi Callum. So thank you very much for taking the time out today to talk to us. I always think a good place to start in these conversations is to learn a little bit more about you. Could you just give us an overview of your background, your career to date, and then a little bit about your role currently?
Yeah, of course. So I suppose my life really, I've always loved sport, been into sport, playing sport, watching sport, anything about sport. School I played rugby, football, hockey, cricket, you name it, I played it. I always wanted to work in sport, whether it be a PE teacher or I think football was the dream. And then when I did A-levels, I took psychology as a module, which I found really interesting. And off the back of that, did it in A-level, did it at uni, sports psychology, sort of put the two passions together, found really interesting. Did my undergrad, did a master's. And then sort of the back of that, I did quite a bit of travelling, which I sort of used to have a break, I think, from education, which was tough. And then just sort of discover what I really wanted to do. And then when I came back, I got a job sort of part-time teaching, sort of as a tutor for those that were sort of struggling in school, might be expelled, but they were helped sort of with a bit of extra measures. And then I worked for Cardiff Council with 18 to 25-year-olds, young people, which I found really empowering, to be honest, to sort of see their journey and see their growth, and some goals that I had in my life and compared to the goals that they had, equally important for both of us, but so far apart in terms of what they look like. And then I guess my passion for football came in. I was really lucky to get an opportunity to work with Newport County, sort of part-time as a sports psychologist and doing psychology for them and their players. But I found sort of while I was doing that, the players, they came to me and they had different questions other than psychology, just a question about their life, question about their well-being, what was going on, and asked if they could do more things, sort of life skill, and like my transport's difficult, I'm struggling to afford this and that. And I sort of thought that it was really mad that they were coming to me sort of as a part-time person that was never really there, and they couldn't go to their coaches, their managers, their this and that. But then I sort of found out that in football you go to a coach and you sort of say something's wrong with you, the fear and the taboo is that they'll drop you instantly, you're not going to play as well on the Saturday and you're no use to them, which sadly sort of 3, 4, 5 years ago was probably the case. So then the Premier League sort of released a lot of funding to all academies to create a job in what is now player care. So that is a very, very broad, very, very vast sort of area that's still evolving, still developing, and doesn't really have a job description. But I looked to apply at a few different academies, so I thought that is where I want to go into now, sort of developing the person, looking after them, sort of going away from my performance psychology, which I still love, but got the job at Cambridge, and that's what I do. I've been here probably almost 2 years. I was the first one to hold the role. So when I came in, it was a blank slate. And I found that, to be fair, coming to Cambridge, an absolutely brilliant club. There wasn't a player care manager, but everybody was responsible for player care. So the boys look up to different people, different individuals, and they provide different support. And I thought that was actually brilliant. And sort of coming into a club full time, I sort of got the picture of that more and more. That the boys would look up to different members of staff, they'd seek support, and they get help and support, but it's nice to have somebody overarching that together. So that's what I do now.
Yeah, totally, and I can understand there's that clearly a need for that safe space at a club, like you were saying at Newport, people were coming to you and might have been initially surprised, but actually there was that safe space. But then coming to Cambridge and being the first in that role, I guess you've had a real opportunity to shape what it looks like. I assume you have lots of different hats that you wear, whether it's like coaching, mentoring, the wellbeing side, general communication, the boring admin stuff. What does a average day look like for you, or is that too much of a question? But if you can give us a sense.
Yeah, I would say effectively as sort of player care, you basically do everything apart from coach the boys on the pitch. So I'll go on the most average I can go on. So average day, I would work with the full-time boys in the daytime. So come in the morning, sit in sort of staff briefing, and I'd work with the under 18s and the 21s predominantly. Mm-hmm. So I would sometimes go on the grass, just go and watch them play, have a chat with them when they come in, talk to them, look after them. Once a week with the under 18s and the 21s, we like to put on a workshop, sort of either life skills, psychology, so I can still do that. So luckily, I suppose at the club, I've got that experience and I absolutely love doing it. So that's what we do. So we do that probably once a week. And then in the evenings, I would go to schoolboy training. So then the boys from under 9s to under 16s, either go and might be on the grass with them, have a chat to them, speak to the parents. And then once a week again, we try and do a life skills workshop with the under 15s and 16s. And then probably once a month, we'll do one with the younger age groups, try and get them some sort of experience as well. So very different across the board, but it can be having chats with parents, it can be having chats with players, any boys that are injured, making sure they're okay, getting the support they need. And I suppose that's a typical day, but no day in football for anybody, any member of staff, any sort of player care is the same. So you might get a phone call at 8 in the morning and your day's plans have gone and you need to sort of restructure it. So I think time management, balance and prioritisation is like a massive part of what we do.
Yeah, and that willingness to kind of be dynamic in case
100%.
Your attention is needed elsewhere, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So when we were preparing for today and we had an initial Zoom conversation, I was actually surprised at myself coming to that conversation with some misconceptions around what football academies are. And I was probably fed that storyline that most people have, where it's pretty cutthroat, players are released, then sent out into the real world. But what I really learned was actually that isn't always the case, and it's very much different to that. Can you just give us a sense of, I guess, some like myth busting of what really academies are? And I'm really kind of interested in both yours and the club's central ethos of what the academy is and what you do. Yeah,
so I think to be fair, to have those misconceptions, like probably when I started working in academy football, I had those misconceptions that it was all performance. You make players for the first team or to sell, and that was it, really. So that when I sort of dug deeper into the role and sort of player care and actually looking at the people who cared about the boys, both Newport, Cambridge, and when I go visit other clubs, like all players, all staff, all people that get into academy football, they do it because they care about the boys. So we look at the person, we don't look at the footballer, because I think everyone knows numbers in football. Like a lot of the boys in sort of academies aren't going to make a living. They might make a living and have to retire at 30, 35, but they've still got to do another job unless they're incredibly lucky. Yeah. And you won't meet many of them. So I think, I suppose an ethos is, I would say as an academy, our ethos is really to sort of give the boys lifelong lasting memories and sort of just give them a massive real experience that other boys aren't so lucky to get. At the end of the day, everyone sort of comes into the academy because they had a hobby, football, which millions of people have, but they're just really good at it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make them a footballer. We always say that you're not a footballer, you've not made it. When you're in an academy, you're not a footballer. You're a person, you're a kid, you're a brother, you're a son, and you've got all these sort of strands to your bow. So I guess our idea of when boys come into the academy, whatever age they come into, we want them to leave a better person than when they came in. And they're already great kids. Like a lot of the kids we get, we're lucky, like they're brilliant kids. But if we can just add value to them, whether that be experiences, whether that be life skills, we just want to try and give boys the opportunities and different things that they wouldn't get when they're at a normal school or that their other friends might not get.
You know, just before we were on, when we arrived today, you were talking about just having a trip away with them. Could you give us a bit more details about that and other things that you have off the pitch? Yeah,
100%. So I'd probably start with the most exciting one that we have, and then we'll work backwards, because what we try and do for every single boy in their academy, we try and get them to go on a tour every single year abroad somewhere. So we have good links in Holland, Germany, Belgium, and we want to make sure every young lad that comes to our academy gets to go on a tour, whether they're 9, 18, get to go abroad, get to go on a plane, without their phones, without their parents. So that is a real sort of lesson for them in growth and sort of resilience. They've never been away before. We try and let them choose their own food when they're 9 and they're 8 and they're 10. A little bit of education. I think the sort of first tours we did after COVID, all the boys in the morning went for the hot chocolate machine, and then they couldn't play in the morning because they felt a bit sick. So try and educate them on why that's wrong, but try and let them sort of make those mistakes as well so they can sort of learn. Letting them be in the rooms with other boys and just giving them responsibility to, right, you need to sleep now because of tomorrow. And then sometimes you might think that they'll struggle. Some of the boys that you think they're very, very excitable, very, very bubbly, but they're very responsible, and they tend to sort of go to bed, they'll sleep, and we'll get them up and they're ready for the day, because at the end of the day they're here because they want to play football, they want an experience. And you get to play teams like Ajax, Borussia Mönchengladbach, like massive teams across Europe that you wouldn't get the opportunities to do otherwise. If you play for even like a non-league sort of team, you don't get those opportunities, so that's a massive one. Sort of this year, we've just come back last week, as I was sort of saying earlier, from the Lake District, so we took our under-18s on tour there to try and link the group together, because the under-18s are made up of 2 years, so to try and sort of bond the group, get them together and give them a challenge, and really sort of test them psychologically. So one of the tests we did with them, we did an assault course when we got there, and they were asked to give 100%, give their best efforts, and they did the same assault course on the final day, and some boys had improved their time by 3 or 4 minutes. So really sort of showed in 2 days that giving 100%, they hadn't given it here, even though they might have thought it. They've got extras, and some conquered their fears. They had fear of heights, did abseiling, like really just, again, like it's an opportunity that some of the boys would never ever have. And when they were there, like, I'd never do this again, I've never done this before, I'd never dream of it. So those little things that we can do for the boys, just the position we're in, I think it's massive for them, and just give them nothing to do with football really. It's just a lifelong memorable experience that they can have, and obviously hopefully we'll help them on the football pitch and help them when they come back here. So that's a massive part. So trips and tours are huge. And in terms of the other things we try and provide the boys with, so it obviously varies by age, but at the under-18s and sort of under-21s levels, we want to try and provide them with sort of extracurricular opportunities that are relevant to them. Like a lot of the boys, when they're 16, they'll get their first pay packet from us, and 3 days later they'll come to me, but I've got no money left. So we try and, as early as we can, educate them on finance and how that works, and this shiny paycheck in your account that you want to spend and buy new clothes. You'll see them come in new clothes the next day. Maybe next month, don't do that, and try and save some and try and work on budgeting, and just different things. We try and get a lot of sort of ex-pros in as well, ex-players who have played the game, or players that have been through our academy and perhaps been released and sort of chose a different career path to try and get in, because I can say it as much as I want, but the boys don't resonate with me. I've not played football to any good level, so they don't resonate with me as much as they say, oh, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to be absolutely fine. Of course, their dream is football, and we want them to dream, and we want them to try and do that, but we want to make sure every boy, that especially at under 18s and 21s, has a backup plan, because they're going into the big bad world. And we try and just sort of show that through the skills they have. I do an activity with most age groups where I'll get one group to sort of list the skills that they've learned and they've developed as a footballer, one group to show the skills that they want from an employee in their business. Don't tell them what they are, and I would say 99% of the time they come up with the same skills, and they have no idea what the other team's sort of talking about, and then a big penny drop moment sort of comes there. So not almost always educating them, just sort of making them realise what they've got and what they've learned from football, because it is tough. Like a lot, like the young lads get a bad rap that they're playing football for a living, but they're in here 6 days a week, they're in here full days, and it really does set them up for the working world.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think for my personal opinion is kind of like education and experience enriches you as a person.
100%.
It's not necessarily always to get a job or whatever it may be, and that is certainly in line with what you're saying with the academy there. I think what's really interesting as well, saying like former players coming in, they may just say the same things that you do, but that new voice to them, it resonates a bit more. And again, it's just providing that opportunity of meeting people, because I can imagine perhaps here you could have days where no one new comes in and you're kind of in the same group or whatever it may be. I'm really interested in, obviously, as you said earlier, that there will be players that do get released and everything like that. So that preparation of them, how do you touched on it there, preparing them for potentially a life outside of football. Can you tell us a bit more about that and that idea of keeping in touch with them once they've potentially been released, and how your guidance continues? Yeah,
of course. I'll go back to your last point and sort of the connections and having new people come in. So what we always encourage the boys is when they have people come in, because they are lucky, we've got a lot of contacts, they meet a lot of really interesting people, sort of probably once a week they have somebody new come in who will educate them as a different story, might be talking about social media, might be talking about business, entrepreneurship, anything. The PFA might come in, and we always encourage the boys that even if right now that's not particularly interesting to you, go and get their number, go and get their contact details, because you never know when you might need someone. And that's something actually one of our ex-players sort of taught me, who've been through it, and he's really, really successful now. He's doing really well for himself, but he came in and every single person that come in, he got their number just in case he needs them. And his phone contacts now are absolutely brilliant. Anybody he needs, he's sort of, I've got them. And all the people that come in, again, they love to help young people. They're doing the job because they want to help young people. And I think that when someone reaches out to them, they're always really responsive and really helpful. So that's one thing I'd sort of say we go for. And then again, talking sort of more towards the under 18s than the 21s that get released, because they're the ones that straight away go out into the big bad world as such. So as part of the Premier League sort of funding and the programme that they've sort of delivered to player care managers, we have a responsibility to look after the boys for at least 3 years. And we don't see that as we have to do it, we certainly want to do that. So initially that might look like quite a lot of contact with the boys, sort of a lot of the boys want to carry on playing football. Some of them are lucky enough to get into academies, but a large proportion aren't. So they might sort of drop into non-league, have to get a part-time job, have to do some sort of education. Again, which is what it's not just doesn't start on the day they get released, they've started it months and months ago. They might have to apply for uni 6 months ahead of time, just so they've got a place just in case. One of our lads this year who's left the programme at 18 is going to America in a couple of weeks to do a scholarship there, so to play at the highest level American college football and go to uni. So he's super excited for it, he's buzzing, and like we're really proud of him as well. So we want to sort of share that story, want to keep it going, and hopefully he inspires the next generation as well. And then as soon as players sort of leave the academy, we bring them into a group which is the academy alumni. So again, I always think that if my voice has always contacted them or the staff are always contacting them, again, we've let them go. Again, I've had no part of the decision, I think, which is a brilliant part of it. So a lot of them wouldn't sort of resent me as part of, oh, you've ruined my dreams or something like this, which they can have. And it's only natural that they might have been at the club 10, 12, 13 years and they've been told that they're not good enough essentially to get to the next step. So they can sort of fall out of touch with some of the coaching staff, but with me, I had no part of the decision. I was very clear with them, I know nothing about football. So going back to sort of what I was saying is the alumni they've got a massive group of players there and a group of boys that have been in their shoes. So we try and hold alumni events as well to connect those people as well. So I held a alumni match, our first ever alumni game at the end of the season last year. Luckily it was a beautiful sunny day. So we had sort of 15, 16, 17 boys, and some of whom had left the programme before I'd even come into the role, and they'd come back and they connected with each other, and they had a group chat, and it was going, and there was like loads of like sort of exciting things in there, and they played a game of varying standards, should we say, like some still play the game, some really haven't played for ages. So
yeah, I find it really interesting as well where when we spoke about it before, you mentioned that there is that 3 years, and you raised a really good point in saying you don't get that after school, you don't get that after university.
100%.
And through my own experience, I can confirm that. You kind of just left to it. But on top of that, the stuff that you were just saying is that you're creating networks from them, which you don't necessarily get from school either.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And then also life skills, which I feel like were completely neglected when I went to school. So, for example, whether that be around like finances, how to live on your own and do the washing, understanding, recent conversations I've had, like you're never taught how politics works in the UK at school, or certainly I didn't have that experience.
No, not me.
So you are learning, enabling the boys to have that as well, and I think that's the alumni kind of nails that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you say, like in school I didn't get taught any of these things. I was taught the subjects I picked, and then like, right, you're going to uni, off you go, or I finished uni, you graduated, off you go. I might get an email 3 times a year that's a newsletter, but there's no personal touch to it. And I feel that we know these boys every single day, so we are personally connected, and like we genuinely want them to do well. Like if they go and sign for another football club, brilliant. Like you're still realising your dream, and you were somebody else. In the day, there's 7-8 people's opinions that are saying you're not right to be at this football club, but go and prove us wrong.
Yeah.
And whatever field you want to go into, if you want to go to uni, if you're like the lad who's going to America, like amazing, brilliant. There's a chap who is a CEO of a company 5 years after being released. Like the boys are prepared so well. They have so many things given to them here, and like things that they do themselves, and discipline and timekeeping and hard work that allows them to be a brilliant prospect in the real world. And they probably don't realise that when they're here, because they're focused quite heavily on football, and we drop these sessions in and just to sort of educate them and give them these bonuses. So much as sort of when we had a new gaffer last season, just did a workshop with the boys on first impressions, how to shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye, and how to address them. And all the boys, you'll see it whenever anybody new comes into the building. It could be like yourself today. It could be I bought someone yesterday who's going to sort of come and volunteer for us. Like, all the boys will get up out their seat, go and shake their hand, hello, how are you, no matter who they are. And I think that's a massive trait. I think it's brilliant, and it's really, really noticeable. So I think you do prepare them for life, and I think football does get a bad reputation, rightly or wrongly, over a number of years previously. This has been the case sometimes in sort of the football world, but sometimes you only hear the bad case in the media. You don't hear the brilliant ones of the successes that the boys have afterwards. And like, we all got into this job, we all get into academy football, we all work with kids because we care about young people, and like the boys here, we genuinely care about. It's not just the ones that are going to make it. Like, we care about where they go. And I speak for all staff. It's not just me. Like I say, like, I am the player care manager, and I am the one responsible for it. But staff ask me, where's this person? How's this person? Can I grab his number so I can have a chat to him and just see where he is? We try and get boys to come back in and sort of coach for us, if they do coaching badges as part of their scholarship as well. So we're always the ones that are really interested. Come and coach in the academy, come and work with us, come and coach for us. So we want to provide them with the most opportunities they can, because we genuinely believe in them, that they're brilliant people, and we want to look after them.
Are there any, I guess maybe it's just naturally, like you're saying, with the first team players, like mentor opportunities, or is that just a natural thing through the opportunity of conversation with them? Yeah,
I think it's really natural, I think. So like a lot of the first team players here, like, again, we're lucky that we have players who have been around the game a long time who can give advice to the boys. And like Michael Morrison, he's done degrees, coaching badges. He comes in and coaches the boys sometimes to get real exposure to him. He's got sort of an entrepreneurial business, and he's a really good one to say to the boys, like, look, he's played hundreds and hundreds of games in the Football League. He's still doing this to prepare for his career afterwards. At 16, 17, you've played no games in the Football League. If he's doing it, then why don't we think about it as well? And we really encourage it as well, like in terms of, we had last year 221s doing degrees, like with sort of the Open Uni and the spare time, and we make allowances and changes to their programme to allow them to go and do that, like give them laptops, really encourage it, and sort of, again, celebrate it. To tell the other boys and celebrate it, and these boys are doing this, like, have a little chat about that. And I think just mentoring in general, so when younger lads come into the building, like at the training ground, like, it's an honour to come here, but our boys will always welcome them in. Here's this, here's that. And when there's trialists come in, like, you always sort of say, you get one of the lads and be like, I'll just welcome him, tell him what the schedule is, and have a chat. And they mentor, they look after them, and I think that's a real opportunity we give them as well. And they're just caring boys. Like, we're really, really lucky that we've got good lads, and the first team are great with them as well. The first team staff will always chat to them, speak to them, and then when they get opportunities to train with the first team, it's not so nerve-wracking, because they see them all the time. They're around them, they're chatting to them, they'll eat on sort of similar tables to them. So when they go over to the first team pitch and there's that first training session, there's not that, well, I don't know anybody, I've never seen them before, I'm really nervous. They're really welcoming. So it's really good that we've got that link sort of in-house between sort of both parties.
I've been really encouraged as a club overall, off the pitch, as a fan, seeing the time and investment into mental health, and certainly off the field things there. Primarily, and it's accessible on the website, the policies and the strategy they've got around that. Could you give us a bit of an insight on what the driving force behind that is?
Again, I just think we're, like, I know I'm selling the club very much here, but I just think we're such a forward-thinking club. We're brilliant. I think since I've come in, like, our ambition is to be a mentally healthy football club, and it's not just driven from one or two people. It's driven from, so we have a wellbeing team as part of the sort of staff, and then you sort of volunteer to be on there. They're asked for volunteers, but the CEO sits in that wellbeing team, and he doesn't just sit there not engaged. He puts ideas forward. He listens. He talks, and he gives stuff. And when you make suggestions, he's always like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Let's do that, or let's work on this. Let's work on that. He's really forward thinking, mental health wise. And I think when you set it from the top. And also the directors above him, one of the directors is huge in sort of the mental health scene, and really passionate, really discusses it a lot, and sort of does a lot of really good work. I think that's where our partnership with Shout came from a few years ago, one of the directors. And when you use people right at the top of your organisation that actually care about mental health, of their own mental health, the staff's mental health, everyone in the group, and the fans of the community as well. I think when you see that, I think you're more inclined to sort of be like, oh, I'm actually on a group here that can make change, can make a difference. If you're sort of marginalised in a corner and there's 5 of you talking about it and you get a block of the first sort of opportunity you get, it's less sort of encouraging. But we've got loads of schemes to sort of benefit staff mental health, fan mental health, and Cambridge being Cambridge, I think a lot of people see it as, oh, you're a very affluent area, everyone's really well, everyone's fine, like universities, but some of the wards that we have, like the ward that the stadium's in, is like a really, really poor ward. So we do a lot of work, again, like our club and our foundation are so closely intertwined and linked. So we do a lot of work with the foundation and trying to go out and support the local community. Just try and link everything in the club together, I think, just to sort of try and benefit everybody and support everyone's mental health. Like, I think we are quite far ahead in terms of what we do as a club, which is like really nice to work for a club that is like that. And again, like football industry, from somebody who sort of looks in on it from sort of out and about, probably won't see these things. So it's nice to sort of, again, like sort of myth bust, like stuff happens in football clubs that don't care about mental health, work long hours, and you're there to win on a Saturday. Like our football club, obviously we want to win on a Saturday, but that's not what our football club's all about.
Yeah, I found it really interesting when you were just talking there around the areas of Cambridge as well. I mean, there's that misconception, I get it all the time when I say I live in Cambridge and from Cambridge. People just think university, posh, etc. But there's that idea of the town and gown, isn't there? And I always think the town is actually epitomised by the football club, and that's who they represent. What I found encouraging as well, just from my understanding of the policies and strategy around mental health, is that it is for the community as well. It's not just for like staff of the football team, but there's things in there for fans and season ticket holders. Could you give us a bit more info about that? Yeah,
of course. So obviously we support our staff, and like the staff are really supported. So we have like a few different sort of technologies that help the staff to sort of share wellbeing, look after their wellbeing, and get advice. And from that, the sort of different applications that we use, we get training and we get education. And so, for example, 6, 7, 8 months ago, like a lot of the staff on one of the wellbeing apps that we used were speaking about finance, so it was a real stressor for them. So off the back of that, we had somebody come in and talk about finance, how to manage and balance finances, and look at that. So something really small, but something that's giving back to you. Like you go into work and you're being educated on finances, which again, at college, university, I wasn't. So that's something that really goes back. And another thing that we use for staff, and I think we are the first football club in the UK to do this, is we have access as staff to video counsellors. So we can book an appointment confidentially, not sort of spoken about at the club at all, with video counselling. That's all free as part of that. But as part of our partnership with this company, Minerva, we offer that to our season ticket holders as well. So season ticket holders, confidentially, they buy a season ticket with us, and they have access to counsellors at the tip of their fingers. So a video call, and normally it is next day after, so straight away they want to connect with them. And I think that is a real powerful thing to show that we do care about fans. We don't just want to get bums on seats on a Saturday. We actually want to give back, and we care about them. I think if you look in a football stadium, I think it's 1 in 4 or even more so adults that will suffer with mental health at some point in their life. So if we can target and we can get 1 in 4 of those fans, imagine that in a stadium of sort of 8,000 people, 2,000 of them probably suffering at any one time mental health. If we can target some of them and get some help to them, I think that really is giving back to the community. It's not just saying you're doing it. I think that really is like a real practical, tangible thing that we give back to the fans, and just another thing that you get when you buy a season ticket. I think that's like something that we show that we do actually really, really care about people coming through the gate and people in the community.
No, I absolutely love that. I think accessibility is really important in that sense. I think, I'm a big advocate of therapy, but I appreciate there's a barrier for some people just because of the costs, and what we were just talking about in certain areas of the town, and quite often the football fans can't afford that. That is, like you say, something tangible that is there, and the education piece there as well of why you're doing it, which I think is really great. What I found really interesting when we were chatting as well, before we started filming, very similar to Shout, you were talking about how probably more with the academy players, the way they ask for support isn't often a conventional way that perhaps we would as older people. But you have a third phone essentially, which was kind of tech support, and that's where obviously Shout have really found their niche in mental health support. how did that come about then? Was that just something natural, and how effective has it been?
Yeah, I think it's just understanding the people you work with, to be honest. I think for like, even for myself, like I'm older than the boys, and like I'll see a phone call pop up on my phone, or I'll have to make a phone call, and it will really stress me out. Like I don't like speaking on the phone. Drives a partner crazy because she'll ring me and she'll have a conversation, and I'm not great on the phone. I'm like, well, why are you ringing me? Let's just text. So I think when you ring the boys as well, like sometimes they get the same sort of thing. They communicate a lot on Snapchat, Instagram, text, and I think you have to understand that if you ring them, it's not natural for them. It's not a natural conversation. So a lot of the boys will reach out to me. So we use like an app called Kairos. It's like a messaging app, and they'll reach out to me by messaging if I'm not in the building rather than phoning me. And then you sort of have to gauge where they are and sort of ask them if they want a phone call or they want to just text. 'Cause sometimes texting for them is much easier. It's much more natural. Like I think if you go about 10 years, phone calls are more natural, but now texting and messaging and communicating like that is the way that they talk. So I think it's being adaptable to the boys. If they're not comfortable on the phone and you're trying to support them and they're already battling sort of being on the phone, then you're probably not being as effective as you can be. Obviously, like if they want to phone me, they can phone me, but I think that is just being adaptable and just understanding the boys that you are, like the boys that are there. And I think in terms of, again, with the support we provide them and being adaptable, I think it's really important that when I am in the building, the boys might trust people more than me. I think it's me and myself being okay with that. They might have a better relationship with the coach, the physio if they've been long-term injured. And I think it's the boys knowing that any staff member they can go to will provide them support and they will help them. And we have a good relationship, like myself and the boys. That we had our previous physio, she was female, and it was just a different person to speak to. And the boys had a real good understanding that sort of, if they didn't want to come and talk to me about something, they wanted to talk to her because she was a female, she was a different sort of person, she would always sort of tell me. So the boys knew it would get back to me and I would be able to do something about it, but they would tell somebody else first. I think it's just having the understanding, the openness and the transparency and the trust in that sort of aspect that it will get back to me and I will help, but they can tell somebody else first and foremost, which is very important.
I think the value of shout as well, and what we're talking about text messages there is that safe space where in a conversation you're obviously going to get something back, or you may unintentionally be interrupted and you haven't really fully got to what you wanted to say. And I think text is a brilliant way of doing that, or it could be email, or like you say, to a different person. It's just finding what is right for you to be able to get that message across, and that's either intentional or just natural depending on who they're talking to and who it is really.
Yeah, definitely. I think like Shout being like a partner of ours, and when I worked in mental health, my previous job, so I worked with sort of 16 to 25 year olds, a lot of them would have come out of a hospital, and our job was like to try and sort of reintegrate them into the community, keep them out of hospital and sort of build new connections. And for them, the idea of a phone call was terrifying for them. So if the only way I could reach them was a phone, or the only way they could reach out to somebody like the Samaritans was a phone call, that wouldn't work for them. So I think in my previous job, probably more so than now, I use Shout as an advocate for like 24/7 tech support. It's informal, you can do it on your phone, you can, like you say, you can stop at any time in the conversation. You want to stop for an hour and then go back to it later, you can. Whereas on a phone call, it's quite intense. You've got somebody, are you there? Is your signal gone? What's going on? And you can sort of dip in and out. So I think that sort of text aspect is brilliant in that. And when the boys are texting me, if they don't reply for a bit, then they don't need to reply for a bit. There's no pressure on that. Whereas on the phone, it's sometimes a pressured scenario. So I think that's why like Shout and text support and being adaptable, I think is like really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. So what does the 2024-25 season look like for Cambridge United and its wellbeing and mental health goals?
I think it's really exciting. I think sort of we've met as a wellbeing team sort of over the summer, and before we meet quite regularly, just sort of looking forward as to how we can continue to impact people and try and impact a bit more. So I think as part of what we've done for the last year now is we have monthly wellbeing events. So on an afternoon, in people's working hours, we'll have wellbeing events, be it like bake-off, photography competition. We might have like a finance workshop come in. So something that's going to really benefit people, and it just encourages sort of different departments who might not always connect. Like for example, I work at the training ground most of the time. The stadium, it's a 10-minute drive away. I might not connect with people there very often. So encourage you to connect as like a whole group. So I think the wellbeing team had so far largely taken that on, but the idea now is we try and give sort of each department some responsibility for that. So each department has like wellbeing ambassadors, and their job will be to drum up sort of interest from people in their team to sort of run events. So we've done rounders, which got a bit spicy because everyone's competitive when we work at football. So just trying to get every department involved. So it's not just a wellbeing team and you have like satellite groups. if the academy is doing something, or if the trust is doing something, or if youth development is doing something, I think we could try and reach a lot more people that way. And just to run events, have different ideas, and it's not just the same people. So that's one that we want to really keep going and really drive forward to try and reach as many people as possible.
It's
just
kind of a wellbeing culture in that respect, rather than just the team.
Absolutely drive it, and just make sure that people know that at this time on this day, and we sort of sent out a survey recently to see what day works best for everybody. You can go here and promote your own wellbeing and do stuff for yourself. It's like football is relentless. Like it is in the season, it's really hard, and people work long hours and long days, and you sometimes need a break to sort of look after yourself. I think everyone like has their own way of looking after themselves. I think like for yourself now, you sort of discovered like rowing, physical activity. For myself, it's probably like going to the gym, and I think everybody sort of needs to have that time for their well-being. And maybe sometimes in the season we can be guilty of work and not prioritising ourselves. So I think by having those sort of times to prioritise our well-being, or learn, or do CPD, or just like have rounders, a barbecue I think we've got next week. So little things like that, just connecting people. I think like relationships and connection is such a massive part of everything. And I think like we probably don't talk about our feelings or talk about stuff that's going on. So I think having that open space, that open area to just connect and chat to people you might not normally see, and be able to discuss what's going on in life, I think it's like a really powerful sort of way to go forwards. We just want to keep driving and just create that. Like we want to be a mentally healthy football club. That it's not just a strap line. We actually want to live and breathe it. We want to do that, and we want to be part of that. So just anything that's going to help people, and just keep sending out sort of monthly, weekly surveys. If anybody's got a suggestion, if they're not part of the wellbeing team, they're welcome to suggest, I'd really like to do this, I'd really like to see this, and just try and be an inclusive workplace that supports and helps everybody, really.
I absolutely love that, and I love it even more that it's my club. So, that definitely goes a long way for me. So, last question from me, but if you were to, in the context of my challenge, give me one piece of advice throughout me completing it, what would that be?
It's a good question. Put
you on the spot.
I think I'll probably liken it to myself. I think in terms of like physical exercise is probably my release and my sort of safe space. So I think with your row and your challenge, like some days you're going to have tough days. I think everybody have tough days. They'll be tired. There'll be something on the night before. And I think don't push yourself to row every single day. Allow yourself time off and days off where you're not feeling it. You don't want the row and the challenge to become a chore. Like you're doing it for an amazing reason, an amazing cause, and like you will do it. I know you will do it. So just keep enjoying the rowing. Just keep enjoying what you're doing, and have that time and space for yourself. I think like for when I go to the gym, it's probably the only time I don't have my work phone on me, and I have time for myself to be present and not think about what I'm doing for dinner, not think about what I'm doing today or what phone call's coming in. It's the time where I've got just think about myself and prioritise me. So that if you can use the row and the time there, and when you're there, just be present and sort of give that to yourself, and that'd be really important. I think for me, I would say you could do mindfulness and breathing. It doesn't work for me. I'd love it to, but I don't do it. But just be present in that moment and just try and sort of use the row to, like, always think about the challenge that you're doing and the reasons you're doing it for. And some days that'll be more emotional and sort of overwhelming than others. But you do it for a reason, but you're doing it to not just complete the row. Like I'm sure you want to sort of maintain your physical and mental well-being afterwards. So I think don't let it become a chore. I think that'll be what I do. Look forward to it and enjoy it.
I think that's brilliant advice. Well, Callum, thank you very much for taking the time today. Brilliant conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.
And that was the interview. A big thank you to Callum and Cambridge United for making today happen. It was really interesting to hear Callum give us an overview of his role and details on how the club are embracing and promoting mental health. I learnt that academies develop people first and foremost, and that they offer important life skills alongside football development. If you enjoyed this episode and want to follow my challenge alongside seeing more conversations with interesting people about mental health, please consider liking the video, hitting the subscribe button and enabling the alert bell for the channel. I appreciate any support, whether that be donations, motivation in the comments or sharing of the Row content. As a reminder, the Challenge Just Giving page is in the description below, alongside other links including the merchandise store. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Up the U's.